Hi, this is Dana Stalder with Matrix Partners, and we are doing a FinTech session today with Scott Loftusness, the founding partner at Glenbrook Partners. And today we are talking about PayPal, past and the future. Near and dear to my heart because I spent 5 years of my career building that business. And a lot's going on with PayPal in the last 6 months.
Kind of jump ball the way.
Most notably, eBay Corporation's announcement that they would be splitting eBay Inc. into two publicly traded companies that would be separately listed. And then there was also some announcements that came out in the last earnings release around the governance structure that PayPal was putting in place, which some felt signaled that it was being positioned to sell as much as it was being positioned to take public as a standalone company.
That was always my question from the get-go, frankly, was when I heard the announcement to spin, my sense was it would never get spun, it would get acquired, that it would be so attractive to, a handful of potential acquirers.
Yeah, sure. So what do you think, what is the state of PayPal? What are the risks and opportunities for that business, 2015
I've tracked PayPal, part of, we teach a wonderful case study on PayPal as part of the boot camp, and it makes a number of fascinating points about entrepreneurship and payments and success and, what's hard, what's not so hard. But we've, as part of that, followed the transaction growth rate, the user growth rate, the payment volume, TPV numbers, and it's just stunning because they continue up and to the right.
Yeah.
Right. So the core engine at PayPal, which is fundamentally e-commerce internationally, right? Because half the volume, a little over half the
More
volume,
than half the volume
is
now,
actually international,
Yeah.
cross-currency, cross-border.
I remember the day it was zero.
Yeah, I remember you started their
Yeah.
international efforts. And so there's a very powerful growth engine there. There's sort of just the organic fuel, I think, that continues to do quite well. So you have to ask, what are the potential threats to that? We have the card networks, the checkout initiatives and so forth, to some extent are sort of trying to do something similar, right? Making it faster checkout. Certainly the PayPal consumer value proposition in e-commerce was fundamentally about trust and safety, but I think consumer acceptance was as much about the convenience of not remembering a card number.
That's right.
And just checking out with the email
Well,
address.
certainly I can tell you from all the early research, it was, this notion of, I remember the ad copy, the marketing copy we coined was shop without sharing, but PayPal was most popular at small businesses. They were less trusted by consumers, and consumers had a preference to complete that transaction without having to type their credit card in that company's website.
And so, that's under assault, I would say, right, with the network initiatives, Visa Checkout and MasterPass.
And Apple Pay.
And
soon to be Google Wallet.
With the in-app.
Yeah.
And Google Wallet. And we also have this, PayPal's success in this domain is largely a desktop experience, right, or a laptop experience.
That's right.
I think Facebook yesterday reported their revenue 70% now coming from mobile. So the smartphone adoption curve is not anything any of us really anticipated. And so PayPal's value proposition has to transition off the desktop into more and more commerce being done in mobile.
So it seems to me as this transition from desktop to mobile has happened, the core value proposition that was PayPal of the past, which was the ability to complete a payment without sharing your credit card number, so privacy for the consumer, convenience, not having to remember it and type it, etc., is no longer proprietary to them, right? And it feels like that now the operating system vendors, and what I mean by that is Apple with iOS or Google with Android, they now can deliver that same promise to consumers with their mobile wallets. And they can do it not only offline when I'm at the delicatessen, but more importantly and more of a threat to PayPal is they can do that online, right? In fact, I completed just last week, I was at a merchant website doing a checkout, and they had integrated Apple Pay. Uber, in fact, is now integrated Apple Pay. So these card not present transactions.
Right.
So it seems to me PayPal may, in fact, have to reinvent itself a little bit here for this.
These are new emerging kind of threats,
it'll take years to be understood and
there's obviously a huge flywheel with the core engine there, which is true of all these networks.
So what are the kind of things that PayPal might do for this next?
Well, I'm not privy to any of the thinking, but what I've observed is, I guess it was 2 or 3 years ago, began the initiative to take PayPal to the point of sale. With, I think, Home Depot was the original launch customer, and they had some clever hands-free sort of phone number plus PIN, payment examples, or a card. They did a Discover Network deal to get merchant acceptance. In my mind, it's still very early days. I don't find that I use PayPal to buy things at physical point of sale, and it perhaps is related back to the original consumer value proposition, which is that the trust and safety and convenience elements that mattered so much on my desktop e-commerce experience just don't matter to me at the physical POS. I just use the card. I trust the merchant because it's a face-to-face experience in spite of data breach potential. And so it's just a different model. So for them to try and push into the physical POS seems like they haven't cracked the code in terms of the consumer value proposition.
Yeah.
Consumer
so if they haven't cracked offline and their core proposition online is no longer proprietary, do they need to reinvent themselves a little bit, or do they just need to more aggressively compete doing what they're doing?
No, I think there isn't, this is reinvention. How do you find in their case, it's, can you eat your own children? This is probably not a disruptive thing that they can do. This is more about what's the right sustaining innovation for them. And, some of the stuff they've tried in mobile has been interesting, but again, I don't think it's, achieved great success. Are there partnering opportunities? Are there opportunities with networks not necessarily U.S.-centric, but, outside the U.S. where their core value might make, even more sense? We do find increasingly if you look globally, national debit schemes and so forth that could potentially be, potential partners, that kind of thing. It's almost like that's a different mindset where you'd be thinking about PayPal more as a network, frankly, right? Where it's cultivating direct relationships with financial institutions rather than trying to ride on the existing ACH or
And it's got a big base of users. It's a very flexible technology stack,
huge
relative to what the incumbents are carrying around.
Right.
Do you think PayPal survives as a standalone public company for the next several years, or do you think they get acquired?
That's why I mentioned when I heard the plan to spin. My thinking from the get-go was that was a low odds spin. That I would think it would be attractive to. If you think about any of the networks, and not necessarily if we just think, Visa, MasterCard, American Express kind of thinking, but, you look at China, the networks there. I just came back
China
from
Union Pay being the Visa of China, if you will. Yeah.
I just came back from India. There's no obvious acquirer there, but things are changing awfully quick in the Indian market with respect to payments. Yeah. So you'd have to take potentially think what's the global opportunity here in terms of potential partners or acquirers.
Yeah, I tend to agree. It seems to me that this PayPal business is potentially enormous value to one of the established networks, Visa, MasterCard in particular. China Union Pay is an interesting one to think about. I think everybody's a little bit been waiting for one of the large cap players in China to make a move in the United States in the digital space.
But you see it with other Chinese companies, right? The meat industry, the AMC theaters.
That's right.
You see it happening. So I don't know. It's we live in interesting times.
Now, do you think, what is your perspective? And I get asked this question a lot, so I'll have a point of view on this as well. But what do you think about a Google, an Amazon, a Facebook, an Apple, somebody like this as a potential acquirer of PayPal?
I think they have different agendas. I think to some extent, my view of Google Wallet was influenced by viewing the payment transaction as yet another signal that could be used as input to what Google does so well in terms of targeting.
Yeah.
And similarly Facebook, Amazon,
So the value for Google is not being in the payments business, it's being in the data business.
It's being in the data
Absolutely.
business.
I completely agree with that.
And and Apple's kind of taken, frankly, I guess I'd call it the high road with, you're not the business, you're not the product. The consumer is not our product. We sell hardware and software and infrastructure. But the privacy features, for example, of Apple Pay, of Apple not even seeing the signals, is a whole different thing. So I don't think it would, I don't know, doesn't seem to fit.
Yeah. I agree with that. I mean, I tend to think as I think about over the next 10 years and how digital payments are going to play out, I actually think those players, Google, Apple, on the retail side, maybe in Amazon, they actually have more to be gained by tightening their relationship with the networks rather than competing.
I think that's
right.
And
I think acquiring an asset like PayPal puts you at
you're just
directly at odds,
potentially at a loggerheads there.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I was looking at the Visa Europe financials today, and I don't think Visa Inc. MasterCard discloses the e-commerce percentage of total transactions, but Visa Europe did, and it was 18%, growing at twice the growth rate of the core business. So, this is becoming, what used to be, if we remember back in the old days, used to be, $10 billion of payment volume is becoming pretty substantial. So, an asset, the core capabilities, like you said, the systems, frankly, the merchant integration that exists with the PayPal sort of fabric, that's a pretty valuable setup. And the user base, pretty valuable.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, fascinating.
That's for sure.